here with Eric from Mallet, and you have designed some of the most iconic cafes at least in the United States, including Stumptown's cafes, Zeitgeist, Bauhaus, and more. Tell us what your relationship is specifically with La Marzocco.
I guess I was first introduced to La Marzocco in, I think, the mid-'80s when we first started putting Bauhaus together, which I think was the earliest cafe that I worked on. And I was introduced to it actually by Michael Klebeck, who's one of the founders of Bauhaus. We were actually working also on Cafe Paradiso at the same time. And so it was really, to be honest with you, the only espresso machine that I knew. And when looking into it a little deeper, we researched a few other machines and found them to be a lot less money, but we were convinced to stay with Marzocco because of the quality of the machine itself. And I think in Zeitgeist we actually did the only time we did an entirely Italian pairing, where we used Ely Cafe and then used the Marzocco machine, Linnea.
So considering your history in Seattle and Kent Baki's history in Seattle, tell me about how you and Kent first came to know each other and what that's like.
Well, my interactions with Marzocco are almost entirely with Joe Monahan.
Okay.
And so I know Joe well, and we've looked, I think, over the last 10 or 15 years for an opportunity to work together. And so now one's arisen, and so we're working on a Marzocco experience project in Seattle, and hopefully we can get it to come to fruition. It's still on the design boards, as it were, but we're having a really good time. I mean, I'm somebody that has a really strong appreciation for developed brands that have iconic histories, and Marzocco is just such an iconic brand that it's really fun to work on it. And it's really fun given the passion and the depth of knowledge and the people that work in the company, that it's unlike really most of the work that you do. It's when you really get into it, you'd almost do it for free. Almost.
Not quite. Having been working within this section of the industry for so long, what are some changes that you've seen in as far as what is expected from a bar, what owners are asking for, what customers are expecting in general?
Well, I think that the operators that we most like to work with are the ones that have the deepest developed understanding of exactly what they're trying to sell, and how they're going to essentially be conductors of their own experience. And it was interesting listening to one of the guest speakers today, because he went in depth about the purposeful placement of the machine in the front bar, which is very un-Italian. And as you know, Italians locate their machinery in the back bar in order to create essentially just a commerce zone in the front bar. And so that's one of the things that's very different, is a true understanding of exactly the arrangement in order to give a connection to the customer with the barista. And I think the other thing that I think is the most salient change that I've seen is just the absolute elevated knowledge of the true operators with respect to coffee. So though there were cupping sessions and those things happening 25 years ago, it was really a very different experience. I think Bauhaus had Cafe Trieste driven up from San Francisco, and not to disparage that coffee, I don't think it would stand up next to the coffees that we see today excelling at the top end of this market.
But again, those icons.
I mean, Francis Ford Coppola wrote The Godfather in Cafe Trieste in San Francisco. So, and that experience and the way that cafe felt was in large part why we knew that the coffee retail experience could be so much more than it was. And I think those are the same types of experience that led sort of some of the major brands to develop these type of in-house, very sit-down oriented coffee experiences. They knew people would respond to that. And so I think that, without saying Starbucks, I think that Starbucks was also one of the companies that allowed us to say, well, these guys are very this is a very distilled cafe experience, and what we want is something warmer and richer and more people friendly. And so that was kind of the general approach that we actually still take. Just as we just build environments that we want to be in.
Yeah, that's an awesome way of putting it. Besides the project that you have going with Joe, anything else on the horizon we should be looking out for?
We actually are working on some coffee project. We're doing a cafe for Herkimer, but they're a very slow growing brand, as we all know. That Scott and Mike are pretty reserved when it comes to their expansion plans. But it's a really nice cafe, and I think it's going to do well. We've been working in a partnership with Michael Mina in a project in Los Angeles with La Mille, but that thing is, we're having trouble getting that off the boards. But the rest of what we're doing is mostly restaurant business. So lots of restaurants.
One more question about that specifically. What have you noticed in the past 2 or 3 years about how coffee service and is being embraced both by the restaurant owner and customers?
Well, I think I can do it more anecdotally rather than specific, rather than give you a wide-ranging description of that. And so when we were doing a project called RN74 in Seattle, it's a restaurant that Michael Mina, a concept that Michael Mina produced, and they have a very high bar for quality, generally service quality. I don't want to give away trade secrets, but I think they spent about a couple $100,000 just in training prior to opening, which is in the restaurant field, that's pretty unheard of. It's a deep commitment to quality. When it came to their coffee experience, I hooked them up with somebody that I knew was an excellent provider of coffee, and they chose because the alcohol and the food portion took precedence to the coffee. They wanted to have a great coffee, but they weren't willing to invest the time really in producing a handcrafted coffee for their guests. And then so they really went with automatic machines, and the company that I set them up with actually declined providing them coffee. And so I think that that's still part of the restaurant experience. It's pretty difficult, which I think is a testament to how far the actual artisanal approach has come. That retailers and really roasters will walk away from large volume business because they know that the end quality of their delivered product won't hold that high watermark, and so they'll walk away from it. So, which is a testament to the devotion to the long-term goal of just improving the overall experience.
Awesome, Eric. Thank you so much.
Really, thank you.